Hi, it's Asexual Awareness Week 2020, and I've kind of gotten in a groove of doing videos because I did a couple of voice memes for Tumblr. So let's see what happens. I haven't planned this one that much, and I have no plans for this year because. But anyway, let's just start talking. My topic today is ace romance. Specifically, sometimes in comparison to other romance. Not the experiencing a romantic attraction, but the romantic relationships with ace people, where and one other character isn't ace, and how that compares, especially in book series which also have typical romance between, usually between. So I don't know. I haven't planned this very well, so this is gonna be very rambly. And this isn't about QPRs. Maybe I will make a video about QPR representation for Arrow Week, whenever that's gonna. I mean, I know it's gonna be next February, but COVID time, who can tell? Uh, but I have read a couple of books that end explicitly end in QPRs. So, so basically, I don't want to make it seem like a romantic relationship is gonna be well written or I'm gonna like it every time there's an one person is asexual. Like let's start with the bad. Well, not bad, but like like I know this very popular book, but I don't know. I didn't really like the romance in this one between Tash and Paul because it hits like one of the things that I've been finding really important when it comes to reading romance is who has a point of view. And a lot of time when it's single point of view and the point of view is of the character who's not like if you have the narrative of childhood best friends who eventually fall in love, then I need to have both sides because if you have just one side, the way you have to and the side isn't the one who has the romantic feelings first. The way it gets written, you have to do this whole sneaky jealousy stuff that has to be clear to the reader, but the narrator needs to be like a certain amount of obliviousness is required, and I don't like that narrative. That kind of narrative makes me uncomfortable. And the other thing about Tosh and Paul is the fact that if you read a lot of A-spec fiction, a lot of times you can, not patterns really, but you can hit some similar plot points get hit, and that can make you something that it's fun. You might feel is fine, and one per might be fine if you were just randomly reading one book, but if you hit it again, it can start seeming a problem. And Tosh has the issue that I read it around the same time as Let's Talk About Love, and I really love this book. Is that they both have these trios with Tosh and Alice as the central character, and the other two people in those trios have a more socially acceptable relationship. In love, uh, Alice lives with her roommates are an engaged couple, Feeny and Ryan, who are gonna get married eventually. So they're typical romantic couple, and Alice is their roommate, dear friend. Yeah, they have a family dynamic, but it still is like extra. And Taz has Paul and Jack, who are siblings. So basically, with love, at least Alice and Takumi, like Takumi isn't within that trio, so the fact that she can escape the issues with that trio to her romantic relationship. But with Taz, her romantic interest is Paul, So basically, when there comes an issue with the Paul developing attraction to Tash and Tash not so knowing how to deal with it, uh, Jack, Paul's sister, of course, is gonna take Paul's side. So like this, that. So basically, for me, even though Tash is asexual and that does bring out interesting complications to their dynamic, it's still it hits other issues. And then the romance hits other issues that I had, like the whole this whole that if you have a friend group, you're gonna be outside, you're the outsider, and the fact that we have to Paul is the one who develops feelings first, but we don't get Paul's point of view, so we have to get the narrative has to work in this slightly annoying ways to show that Paul has feelings for Tash before Tash knows that Paul has those feelings. Okay, so that's about it. I did. It's been a couple of years since I read Tash, but I did enjoy it, but not as much I loved Let's Talk About Love. And the romantic relationship was part of the issue. And I think at that point I was really feeling burnout on reading young adults, so I preferred the new adult approach of Let's Talk About Love. But mainly, I wanted to talk about two book series that I read this year, actually rather recently. So first, let's start with time chronologically. So is this one Ultraviolet and its sequel Quicksilver. Now, Ultraviolet is from the perspective of Alice, who's in a mental institution because she suddenly was having a fight with Tori, and Tori disappeared, and she thought she killed her in some way, and eventually, this while she's in the mental institution, I hope that's the right word, and this guy Sebastian says that, oh, I'm a grad student and I want to do a psychological study on synesthesia, which is this thing like your senses get mixed up, like numbers have colors and you smell words and stuff like that. So Allison has a really strong synesthesia, and it turns out that Sebastian is an alien. He like came from another planet through a wormhole. Like they might have been like the travel. Like he's kind of human. Like he probably originated from Earth, but that was who knows how long ago time ago. Then like Stargate thing, and I lost my place. So basically, in many ways, so Sebastian was 13 when he came to Earth, and he's been on Earth about 15 years. So he's about 28, something like that. While Allison is still 16 while they meet, and Sebastian is literally acting like kind of like her therapist. Like the relationship is very much textbook conversion. I think that's the word. You know, where you develop feelings for your therapist because like they listen to you and you feel that connection, and like that's like there's the age gap, and he's pretty much was her therapist. So reading that romance was very uncomfortable in many ways, and it's like Sebastian literally does not tell anything about himself to Allison for a long time, and you know in general we don't find out that much about Sebastian. Like in general, like it very much comes down to because of Allison's synesthesia, she sees Sebastian's eyes as violet, and he's very hot 28-year-old. So it was very comfortable to read because like they say like they lip service to the fact that there are issues in the relationship, but then at the end of Quicksilver when they are properly reunited, finally they have this passionate kiss, and like I have not just I very much related to Tori in that moment because it's like ooh, and like it's not just because we are both A's. It's also because like I'm 32 right now. I don't. It probably doesn't show because I'm very short and a baby face. So like the age gap and how they met and everything. It's just it's not. It's just, this isn't romantic. This is gross. Why did you do this? Why? Ugh. So Alice and Sebastian. Ugh. And it's like it very much does come down to that there is sexual attraction between them, even though they shouldn't be. And like Sebastian, like they both kind of make try to make lip service, like oh we shouldn't. Ugh. It's kind of like the Buffy Angel thing, but like oh we shouldn't do this, but then they do, and it's annoying and it's gross and ugh. But then compared to the romance in Quicksilver, now I will say it's very complicated, and I think you can see in Quicksilver you get the what you that you get a lot with a lot of ace representation, which is this idea that once you first realize that you're ace, you either assume like of course I still experience romantic attraction, or then you like assume like can I even have a romantic relationship because I'm ace. So you have this kind of conflict, and usually you can see that in a lot of representation that you get the if you get the early parts. So like I had that same like I first identified as heteroromantic for a while before I realized that I'm actually demi-romantic, and because I don't feel the need to have a what's the word a gendered attraction label to the attraction I do sometimes experience, partly because gender-based attraction labels have to do with your own who you are attracted, what your own gender is, and I don't have any need for that. So basically, I find that relatable. So basically, Tori has like she knows she's asexual, and she's like talked about it. She's talked to people on the internet, and she's happy with that. I'm not sure how out she is, but like she's asexual. She knows it. There's a couple of things that she wonder. Oh well, am I asexual because of this? Because like she's also a alien, the same way Sebastian is. Uh, so, but basically you get it, and that's kind of how that's part of her relationship with Milo. How it develops. Like it's very much she's like she's tried being a girlfriend. She had a terrible boyfriend that she broke up with in the first book, and she mostly not frames her relationship with Milo as not necessarily platonic, but she's very unsure whether it could become a romantic thing, so she doesn't wanna get Milo's hopes up about maybe it developing into a romantic relationship, because she's not sure if she wants a romantic relationship, and she's not sure whether she can have one, especially with Milo, because like when she first talks about it, Milo's like oh yeah I run a lot because like I think about sex a lot, so I deal with that by running and stuff like that. So yeah, but so that's what I like about it, because like they actually have to think about this, what kind of expectations they have about relationships and all this kind of stuff. So I really like the way Tori and Milo's relationship developed in Quicksilver, because like there was real connection, there was a real friendship that turned into real attraction and interest in the other person, which is very much missing from Alison and Sebastian, because Sebastian is hot older guy, and Allison is very messed up at in Ultraviolet. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the Diviners series by Lipa Bray. I don't have the first book, and I didn't read it because I wanted to. I read the series for Ling Chan, and maybe she's referred to in the first book. I don't know. So of course, this gives me I'm at a disadvantage to a certain extent about the love triangle in the book. So like, this is the second book. This is the third one. And this is the last one that came out this year. So, the thing about, like, I love Ling from, like, she was introduced quickly in Leo Dreams, and I immediately loved her. And I liked how the second book hinted at her ageness, and then how it was established in the third book, and then in the fourth book, she really, her relationship with Alma gets really established, and they have the same discussions without all the terminology that we have today, because it's set in 1927, and so you have so I enjoyed not everything, because like it kind of seems that Lipa Bray maybe doesn't like writing actual romantic stuff. I will get back into that. Well, so basically, in the third book, uh, Ling and Alma meet. Ling is interested, not sexually, but possibly romantically and aesthetically and stuff like that, into Alma, and they then off page they like go to the movies together, and they hang out, and they get into a romantic relationship. Like, they kiss, but Ling isn't really into it, but she is interested in Alma. So like, Ling isn't in this third book that much, but what she is, they establish that she's is lesbian, and then in the fourth book, in the last one, they at first Alma breaks up with Ling because like she isn't sure that she wants to have a romantic relationship that doesn't have sex, and Ling is sex repulsed. She doesn't want that. I think she's okay with kissing by the fourth book. But so eventually they have to go on a road trip together, and they really have to grapple with what do they want out of a romantic relationship, and whether they can give that to one another. And at the end of the book, they come to the conclusion that maybe they are still together, and maybe there are gonna be some compromises, but they do love each other and they want to make it work. And so yeah, I like the way it was written. I would have wished that Ling was more in the third book, but I knew she wasn't going to be because I went through the Tumblr tags. I've been talking for 90 minutes. So yeah, I like that relationship. And another romantic relationship I did like in the Diviners was Memphis and Thera. I think that's how you say it. And I think that's partly because like that's an established relationship. And it's an established relationship that also has more external issues than it has internal issues. Because Thera is a white passing woman. Like, there's some indication that she might be native, but it's just weird indications, so that was weird and kind of useless. And Memphis is a black man. So basically they want to be together, and they're wondering how they can be together, but they have a good romantic dynamic and romantic relationship, because it's established, so I liked it. And I'm happy that they get to be happy together. So, but what I really didn't like was the love triangle between Jericho, Evie, and Sam. And here I get that I missed the first book, so which I think is supposed to like it established how Evie and Sam met and how the Jericho Evie dynamic was probably established there. Like they kissed, Jericho and Evie kissed at the end of the first book. But in the second book, Evie's like, oh no, I can't be with Jericho because my best friend Mabel is interested in Jericho. So like sisters before misters, and Jericho wants to be with Evie, but because Evie kind of gives him mixed signals and says, "Hey, yo, you should try being with Mabel." So he tries to be with Mabel, but they don't really have a actual romantic connection. Uh, because uh, what am I gonna say? So, but so basically, I was interested in Jericho and Evie because I liked the dynamic they had together, and it made sense to me as it was up until the part way to the third book, which I'm gonna get into a moment. But I didn't like Sam Evie. Sam is one of those characters who think they are funny, but they are just an asshole. And the way Sam Evie was established in, like, basically, uh, Bray tried to do the whole fake dating trope, except without the dating part. So it was like Evie is kind of this semi-celebrity, and she thought, hey, if I have a romantic relationship, people are gonna want to read about it. So hey, Sam wanna, and so she and Sam are interacting, and someone mistakes that as a romantic relationship, and so hey, let's fake date for like 6 weeks, and then we can break up. And Sam says yes because Sam seems to be interested in Evie romantically. But Evie is just annoyed by Sam most of the time. But so basically, they have this fake relationship, but instead of showing us of them actually interacting in a romantic context and like going on dates and stuff, and to that actually developing romantic attraction, Bray just has them basically. Okay, they went out dancing and dates, and now suddenly Evie is romantically attracted to Sam out of nowhere. Like me, I just it was an annoying dynamic, and that suddenly turned romantic, and it was annoying. And I think that one of the issues is that like when Evie was being with Sam, she was much more likely to also think about Jericho, how she kind of want to be with Jericho, like she had the conflict, she felt conflicted. Like maybe she was, I guess she was attracted to Sam in some ways, but she was also attracted to Jericho, and when she was with Sam, that came out. Like the love triangle was part of the Sam Evie dynamic in the way didn't feel like it was part of the Evie Jericho dynamic. Like I felt like Evie wanted to be with Jericho more truly than she wanted to be with Sam. But apparently Lita Bray wanted the Sam Evie endgame without having to make Jericho sad or like completely or without I don't know. She wanted to make not basically spoilers for the third book. She did something that I really dislike, which is like instead of having Evie actually make a decision about being with Jericho or being with Sam, she had like Jericho needs to take this drug because his insides like his it's complicated, but let's say that Jericho has to take this drug. This one time he took this drug, and it was a very uncomfortable situation because it was like he didn't have informed consent of what taking that drug would do to him, And I think he was actually kind of, you know what, I don't want to take this drug right now, and then he was forced to take that drug, and what that drug did, it was, he released his inhibitions, and what he wanted to do at that time was have sex with Evie, because just before that, he had been having a nice romantic time with Evie, they had been kissing and stuff like that, so basically, with that drug, he ended up attacking Evie. So basically, you can't root for a relationship where one person assaulted the other, and so like that whole dynamic is like, it's gone. You shouldn't like it anymore, even though, well, at the same time, Jericho wasn't really responsible for that, but also Evie can't distance Jericho from that event. So basically, Evie Jericho is done. Like, it can't happen. They end up okay-ish, but the romantic relationship between them was never gonna happen. So basically, instead of Evie actually making a real choice between Sam or Jericho, Jericho was taken out in a gross way out of the running. So then she ends up with Sam, even though it's still not very well developed. I still don't feel like Jericho's felt this Evie relationship was that very that well established as a romantic thing where both people are happy with it. And part of that is because it's just they have this dynamic where they annoy each other, which is supposed to be annoy each other, but it's supposed to be romantic. Like Sam says that, oh, at one point Sam actually says that, oh, I'm gonna call you all those nicknames you hate because you just like the attention. Like, that's how he views her. So it wasn't a dynamic I liked, and it didn't. So basically, it's sometimes like if you. Well, I've been talking over 27 minutes. So yeah, I just have issues with the way romantic relationships are written in the Diviners series, at least the central one. Uh, like in the fourth book, she actually got a bit better because like Jericho did actually get an endgame romance as long as, well, he dies at the end of the book. Sorry, spoilers. But like at that point, she did actually have Jericho like meet someone, and they actually had the romantic interaction. So I can see how that romantic situation developed into a romance. But she skipped all that. The whole point of the dating trope is us to see that romantic relationship blossom within something fake. But instead, we just skip that into the romantic relationship into romantic feelings without actually bothering to fully show us why that happened. So I guess I should do some kind of summary. So I like basically what I like about ace romance is the fact that you really have to work for it, and you have to have these discussions that you don't necessarily have when you are dealing with two allosexual people. Like, and not just in the situation that the other person is sex repulsed and isn't going to want to have sex, because it can be a lot more complicated than that. So not like a lot of this also, of course, it has to do with the tropes and who gets point of view in these situations. Uh, so it's not just that write an ace romance and it's gonna be well written and it's gonna not have the issues that I would have in a in a allo romance. They can have, like in Tash, but it's also uh, but also it does give you the space to talk about these things that you wouldn't necessarily think to talk about, that you should. Because like people have different kinds of needs and different kinds of wants, and just because there's romantic attraction between you two doesn't mean it's necessarily a good dynamic. So, okay, this was really long and rambly. So about Happy AIDS Awareness Week. See you some other time. Bye.